What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of That's Delivered. I'm your host, Truck and Ray, and we have a great show lined up for you. I'm excited to bring back a guest that you guys love, and you guys really liked the episode the first time around. So now, if you ever wondered what really looks like behind the scenes of UPS or just the trucks moving freight, about the union work, the problem solving, and the leadership, this is the episode for you, because today we're welcoming back Chuck Bryan, a seasoned union steward out there at Chicago Area Consolidation Hub, CACH. Chuck has given us a powerful look into the world last time of logistics with UPS, logistics, managing the dynamics between members, management, and representing his people and trying to stay rooted in union principles. So that was that time. Now we're going to go even deeper. We're going to talk about some things that you guys want to know more about and what the future looks like. So let's bring him in. Chuck, I'm glad to have you on the show. Man, it's been a privilege to have you on. So how you doing today?
I'm good, brother. Thanks for having me back.
Nice. Yeah, it's great. Just try to catch up a little bit. I know you've been busy. There's been a lot of things going on with finding a union steward and putting together the right team to represent the union members out there. So give us a sneak peek about how that was going for you. I'm sure there was a lot of work.
Yeah, we had every 3 years, like everywhere else or most places, we had a steward election at CACH, and there was a group of us that ran, and so we ran a campaign. Fortunately, not everyone in our group was elected, but I think it's a good practice to bring issues to the members and try to raise participation, get people more engaged, even if they don't vote for you. It's you want as many members involved as possible, and so I think we had 1,040 somewhere in there eligible voters, and the total count was 709. So about 70% of the eligible members for Local 710 and at CACH voted in the steward election, and reelected six of eight stewards that had previously served in the last term, and then we got two newer stewards elected. So, time to serve another 3 years to the membership and try to do the best we can against a company that is not always very easy to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of changes going on this year alone, and more to come in the future. It looks like anything going on at CACH that's new or on the horizon that many people have questions about or want to know.
We haven't had, CACH, we're kind of in a unique position because we're a large hub. We share the building with Local 705 out of Chicago as well. So we're not your traditional hub where, we're bringing in feeder and we're sorting, and it's just, local work and a few overnight runs. We're exclusively feeder. And so, we don't have package car positions for 710 at CACH. We don't have any inside people. Those are all Local 705. But because we're a consolidation hub in the middle of the country, a lot of what's going on out there at other smaller hubs across the country, I'm not going to say it doesn't affect us, but it doesn't affect us in the same way that it might an end-of-line hub or a smaller facility somewhere in the country that's experiencing layoffs and things like that. They paused hiring for a time at CACH, a very short time. The problem is at the bottom of our board, we have quite a bit of turnover on the bottom of our board because, of course, they hire people and you may or may not get work for 2 or 3 months. And so it's difficult for people at the bottom of the board to hang in there when they're not working for a long time. So currently right now, we had a lot of Amazon stuff the last couple of weeks. Been moving, they had, I guess, Amazon days.
Right.
And, so there was a lot of extra work, a lot of people working extra shifts. Board was exhausted. They were asking sleeper teams to go out when they came back to try to cover all the work. My understanding is they did get all of that covered and got everything moved. But it's been busy lately. And then obviously there's I think this has affected all the sleeper teams across the country, but corporate is now, nitpicking teams a little bit more on fuels, wanting them to fuel more hubs. And I know there's some hubs out there that aren't allowed at all to fuel anywhere but a hub. And, so it's been an adjustment to kind of, figure out what it is that the company wanted, and they weren't real clear on their policy, and trying to communicate to them and make sure that our members know what they can and what they can't do and what the procedure is. But I think we've got that pretty much figured out at the moment. So hopefully we won't have any more issues with members, being pulled into the office and harassed.
Yeah, it seems to be no end to that. So then education is the best way to prevent a lot of that pain. So thanks for doing that, helping them out, representing for the members. I mean, it's a huge thing. Kind of looking back a little bit, kind of digging a little further. What's one thing you said last time that stuck with me? How important it, stewards and the knowledge of the contract. One thing that we probably clarify or help people kind of reiterate that, the desire to know the contract is not just a quote, but it's just, it's a reality to understand it.
Well, I mean, so, stewards, like in 710, for example, we're not, under the bylaws, we're not a representative of 710. We don't represent the local. We're basically a liaison. We're elected, and we do represent the members. We do it at the behest of the executive board of 710. But really our goal, our goal as stewards should really be to educate members. And, when new things come up where the company is enforcing, this rule or that rule, or they've made up a brand new rule, it's about getting clarification from the company on exactly what they want and how they want it done and how they want our members to, do whatever it is that they're demanding at the moment, so that we can keep our members safe from discipline or even if there's a contract dispute, having a conversation about, well, this is what the contract says. Just because the contract says something doesn't necessarily mean that UPS follows it, right? And there might be some dispute between your local union and UPS about actions that the company's taken towards their members. Communicating to members that, hey, the local's working on this. Your locals are trying to fight the company on this. They're having conversations about what's negotiated in the contract. But in the meantime, we can protect ourselves by doing this. You can follow work directions and then you can file a grievance later. You can do something that sure you're irritated about, or, you don't think it's part of your job to do something. Do it, file a grievance, protect your job. Your job is the most important thing, to be able to come in the next day or the next week and, clock in and go do your job and provide for the people that you're working for.
Yeah. So, that's a tough thing to do. There's a lot behind that than just those words. I mean, that's how do you local, maybe it's something that maybe other locals can adopt or to help educate people. What's a good practice that you could probably put in place that you're already doing? I know you got a lot going on Telegram.
Yeah, I mean, we have our Telegram groups, and we have several of those because our safety department, our CHSP, runs a few pages. A lot of those are around, weather. We have a lot of sleeper teams at CACH, so we have like a weather and info page with weather throughout the country. Things to look out for, and our CHSP does a really good job of being consistent in what they post at the beginning of every week, kind of getting an idea. Hey, I'm going out west, and there's a huge heat wave, or maybe in the wintertime there's a winter storm moving through. Things that can help you plan your week. And then there's general chat groups where, let's say you're going into a rail yard and you can't get past the kiosk because you don't know how to log in and what am I supposed to put in, and be able to have real time help from other members to help you do your job out there when you're in the middle of something and maybe experiencing something you haven't done before. And then the page we run is more about, we do all of those things as well, but our more of our focus is what your rights are, what your obligations are, because the contract's not just about what you get, it's about what you're obligated to do for the company. It's a contract's always a two-way street. So like I mentioned, the fueling, if you look at our contract, it talks about if you're scheduled for a fuel here or there. And I was getting guys calling me saying, well, they don't have any right to tell me where to fuel. Well, yeah, they do. The contract says they can schedule your fuels. And so if they want to schedule your fuel at a hub, that's completely within their right to do it, And so making sure guys don't assume, I think we've all had those conversations where somebody thinks the contract says one thing and it doesn't really say that. And we want to make sure before people make decisions that they're doing it based on the rules, so they don't find themselves in the office, starting progressive discipline.
Yeah, that's not good because once you affect your livelihood, things are a lot more than the contract. There's a lot of things that we don't want to hurt our family. That the insurance and being there for them. I mean, that's a huge deal. So that's good.
Absolutely.
You highlight that. Yeah. So yeah. So now, real talk. When it comes, what do you do when it's on paper, but it doesn't really match what's happening out there in the dock or the yard? And maybe it'll help people with that. How do you walk that line between staying loyal to the contract but keeping the job running without blowing it all up?
Well, I mean, yeah, you want to, again, a lot of disputes are going to be contractual disputes between the company has some interpretation that the local doesn't agree with. So as disheartening as it is and difficult because, members are upset, a lot of times what we're doing here is we're following our directions, right? We're given a work assignment. And even if we don't agree with those things, our number one goal as a union is to protect livelihood of our members. So we don't, I don't think there's any local out there that's going to tell you, hey, be insubordinate when they tell you to do something. Just do whatever you want anyway. There's not a business agent or anybody who's going to tell you that. Generally, even if we believe as a local that it's a violation of the contract, generally the instruction is from your business agent, work as directed, file afterwards. And that's difficult for some people because they're upset, right? They're, hey, this is BS and they've never done this before, and and they're upset about it. And you just kind of have to have some empathy from where they're coming from. Certainly I can understand why you're upset about this, and I understand why maybe it costs you more time, or you're going to get home a little bit later, but you're going home with a job, number one. And there's just a process that we have to follow in order to, address these situations through the grievance process. And the grievance process by nature, right? You're filing a grievance because you believe the company has done something wrong to you. So it's in nature reactionary. You have to be wronged in some way to file a grievance. You don't file a grievance when you haven't been grieved. You have to give the company the opportunity to do the right thing. And then when they don't, because you've been wronged, you're filing a grievance. So I know that part of that part is frustrating for a lot of people, where they think, they want to get out ahead of it. And sometimes locals do a good job of that, where, let's say we see something that's going to be an issue. And if your business agents or even your stewards have a relationship with a manager, that maybe they can have a conversation before something becomes a problem. Sure. You get it taken care of, and it's not an issue going forward. But a lot of times, as all of us know at UPS, a lot of times it's a long period of time where we're going through the grievance process, and it can be slow and it can be frustrating. And just remember that, companies sometimes use the grievance process and the ability to drag things out as a way to kind of as a way to divide and get union members against one another. We've heard it with the fuel stuff this week. There's a lot of union members who, I heard this guy had 4,000-mile run and he's fueled 10 times, and that's why I can't get fuel anymore. And it's a little and I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but when I talk to management, it's hey, this came down from corporate. This is something where they want to make more money. Most of the time, everything that UPS does is money centric, right? They're doing something to make more money. And I don't think the fuel is any different. But, there's a lot of union members out there who take it as an opportunity to say, we're in this position because of this person or that person, or this member did something wrong, and now we're all stuck with this. And I think they do it not realizing that you're dividing the local. You're dividing the union. You're being divisive in the way that you look at something, when the company is clearly doing it. When it's coming from corporate, it has nothing to do about some individual guy at CACH or Minneapolis doing something wrong, and then they make a blanket, a blanket directive for the whole company. That's not how it works. And so, it's a little bit disappointing, but it's, again, another opportunity to have that conversation about, why are we really in this position? Why is the company really doing this? And kind of highlighting the fact that we have an opportunity to come together over an issue, instead of taking the bait and dividing one another over it.
Yeah, I could see how they could make money negotiating fuel prices, but then if we go off of that contract, if there is one, between that relationship between the fuel company and UPS, they're gonna be like, why do we got to give you such a low rate? That's where I kind of go and sympathize with the money part of it, because if we're able to get gas anywhere, why would this particular company subject themselves to a lower fuel price?
Well, I mean, if anybody wants to know, the last, what was that, a couple months ago, they had the shareholders meeting, right? And we've got feeder drivers and package car drivers all over the country that are laid off. We've got inside people who have lost their jobs completely to automation, or in buildings that are shut down while they automate. We've got all this stuff going on, and UPS goes to the shareholders and says, "Oh yeah, we happen to outperform our projections by $450 million. $450 million. So, this isn't about you or I as a driver. It's not, this idea that UPS does things to, I always love the advertising about, how great of a place it is to work and how well they treat people. And it's like, all you got to do is watch the news, or listen to, there's plenty of people out there. They're pretty famous in the industry, um, for their treatment of their people. And so they're not doing anything for you or I. They're, this is driven by shareholders. This is driven by dividends. They're not trying to make a better life for you. This is all about money, and it generally is. And if you look at the things companies do, and you translate it into money, you get a better understanding of what they're actually doing. You can see it with a clear light.
Right. I can agree. I mean, there's a lot of talk out there right now about busting the union and these contract or numbers that are being thrown out there about letting go early and maybe
Right.
getting a buyout. What's your takes on that one? I know you've heard some of that probably out there too.
Yeah, I know. I know the IBT came out really strong against it, and said that they believe that it was a violation of the contract. It's hard to comment a lot because I've not seen. There's rumors that the company is gonna bring this stuff out. I've not seen the actual program. I've not seen to whom or how much they're offering, and how that affects their retirements or their ability to take insurance in retirement or anything like that. So I'm not sure. I think clearly, again, translate it to money, when you when you get rid of top scale long-term members, presumably a lot of whom are educated and strong union members at top scale, and you get rid of 25,000 of them and you replace them with 25,000 people off the street in progression that you can pay a diluted wage to for the next 4 years. And you can talk to them about the union in a different way than maybe you can that guy that's been there 30 years or that gal that's been there 30 years. I think they would be very hard pressed. I think the idea of UPS deserting is I'm sure they'd love to do that, but their ability to do that, they would have to do that probably at a national level, and I don't know that they'd ever be able to, be successful in that. But again, I think it's a lot to do about making money, and if you do look at the payouts when they come out on the program, and I would bet that you multiply that out and then you take an average wage week to week with a new person, and I bet they make a profit on the wages that they would have paid the top scale member who had been there. And over the course of a 3-year or a 4-year progression throughout the country, they obviously are going to make money off of that. The bigger concern is, the job guarantees. Is the company going to try to say, oh, well, we hired 25,000 people, so we've upheld our job creation within the national? I think the international made it clear that they would fight very hard against that those aren't additional jobs. Those are, you're just replacing that many people. But it'll be interesting to see how the company lays it out, how lucrative those payouts are, how many people actually take them up on that offer. Because I can't imagine too many people will, if it affects their ability to, if it affects their pension or their health benefits or anything like that in a significant way. I wouldn't think a lot of people would take them up on that. So I'm kind of waiting to see what the program is and read about it and go from there. But I think it's certainly, again, about money. It always is with UPS.
Yeah. And for those listening out there too, I mean, we can speculate all we want, but until we actually have something concrete to look at and really look at those numbers, like you said, this is, just based on our opinion, your experience and what you've seen over the years. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Sure. And there's a lot of people out there. There's guys on TikTok. Hey, this is what it is. And how do you know what it is? Until they release a program, you can't really talk about what the company's offering, because we don't know. We haven't seen it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of speculation that possibly the company is going broke because of the contract. What's your opinion on that?
Well, they outperformed, like I said, the last shareholders meeting, they outperformed their projection by 450 million. I mean, this company continues. I mean, if you're a feeder driver out there that pulls, one load a week, you're paying for damn near your full year. That's the type of profits that they're making. You think back, even coming out of COVID, hundreds of billions of dollars in profits. And that's after they wrote off everything they could write off. Their profit margins in small pack are so big. This idea that we can price ourselves out is comical, really, if you look at what the revenues are, and we're the ones that create those revenues. Yeah. It's they could get rid of every division manager at your hub. They could get rid of every every specialist and every on-road at your building, and we all know how to do our job. Other than needing a trailer number and, hey, where did you load this at? Us as employees of theirs, we know how the systems are run, and we're the ones that move those packages. Whether it's the package car driver picking that stuff up, or it's the part-timer on the dock loading or unloading, or it's a feeder driver taking it from one hub to the other, locally or coast to coast. We're the ones that deliver those packages. We're the ones that create that revenue. And we should take pride in that, because those are the revenues. When they have 450 million, that's what we did. We did that. It wasn't management. It wasn't, it wasn't a lot of other, I can't think of a time where I came into work and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and a manager told me what to do and allowed me to do my job. That's just not something that generally happens. So, no, I don't think they're losing money. I think they're investing a lot of money in automation to try to eliminate Teamster jobs going forward. And that's, again, that's money related. That's to increase dividends for shareholders and everybody else, because that's the focus when you have a company that's publicly traded like this. It's not about you. It's not about your ability to buy a house or buy that car you want or send your kid to college. It's about the guy that owns 1 million shares and him getting the dividend that he wants on his investment. And that's how this company runs. That's how we, how they measure success. So
yeah, that's a good to speak on that, because there is a lot of fear monger that goes on that next contract we're going to be where we can't ask for anything. They're going to start taking things from us, and that kind of helps people to not want more. I'm not saying they need to be greedy.
What did Carol Tomes come out right afterward and say? Oh, that was easy, right? They didn't. We thought we were going to pay a lot more. And now they want to cry broke. And look, we have members who always think the company's going broke, scared to death to ask for too much, always think they're gonna, that the company's gonna go out of business if you ask too much. Just go back and look at clips of Carol Tomei on CNN or Fox or whatever your chosen news network is, right after the contract in 23. What was she saying? Boy, we got off cheap. We didn't pay what we thought we were going to pay. And they're not offering us more money than they can afford to offer us. And quite frankly, there was a threat of a strike, but it's not like they had to come with two offers. You know what I mean? We passed the first, the historic contract that we have. Yeah. We passed it on the first go around. It's not like we pressed them for extra money. This is what they offered. And then went around afterwards and said, that was easy. Glad we got off so cheap. So to come back now later and say, and for anybody to really think, or even the company to be taken seriously, to say, boy, we're really struggling. When they're outperforming all of their own objectives, as far as earnings goes, I mean, that's, I don't think it's realistic to really talk about them losing money. They're not losing money.
Yeah,
if they're losing money, I mean, we have 500 specialists in an office with 300 bids. We've got people. You walk in and there's new people in there every day that are. I'm not even sure what they all do. They're just part-time and full-time office people. If they're not contributing anything to the bottom line, if I'm the company and I want to shore up more money, it's not you or I that I eliminate. It's the people that don't produce revenues. Yeah. So I just don't think it's, I just don't think it's a reasonable thing to think that we've outpriced ourselves, or the company's losing money because they're paying us too much. I just don't think that's true.
What about the relationship with the rail? I mean, they weren't using that as much before, but COVID is a priority. Now they can use the rail, so they're able to.
Well, I think rail's always a problem. One of our issues. I mean, it wasn't looked at in our contract either, but one of the things that we really pushed, and one of the things that we wanted to see was we wanted to see rail included in subcontracting, where everybody at our building is working before you can put something on a rail. And that didn't happen, but I think if we've learned anything, I think we can always learn something about contracts. And I hope what we've all learned is that we can go out there and get inside workers $100 an hour, but if they automate their job, what does it matter? If you don't have a job and you don't have job protections, how does it help you long term? Sure, we want the money, but the language of the contract matters. Your job protection matters. And that's, I really think, what the membership should come together in, because I'm not an inside worker, and I'm not but I have no problem last contract going out on strike for my brothers and sisters on the inside, because they deserve what they deserve. I go in there, you're a feeder driver, you go in there, you see those guys working. So, work their ass off, package car guys, God bless you. I don't want to do that. I want to get in a semi and run across the country. I don't want to have 1,000 stops and being badgered all day by management. No thanks. They work their ass off for their money, and they should have job protection. They should have job protection.
No disrespect to the feeders out there as well. I mean, driving all those hours, all those nasty accidents out there. You got to trust the other driver as well that's driving for you while you go to sleep. So, yeah, all of it. All of it is hard.
There's pros and cons to every job, but you know, those people that look down on part-timers in the building haven't been inside of a building because, our brothers and sisters on the inside work their ass off. They really do. And sure, it may be a 3.5 hour shift. And, I got to go out and drive in a blizzard in Wyoming. And in the winter, sure, that sucks on my side too. And it's tiring and it's, but the point is that there's everybody who's a member has their place within what we do at UPS, and they're all really imperative to what we do. And the success of the Teamsters long term is to make sure, hey, when Ray retires, he's replaced, right? Somebody takes that job. And I think people lose sight of that when they're negotiating contracts sometimes, where they're thinking me, and how much am I going to make? But you want to make sure somebody comes behind you and keeps contributing to the pension and, pays into the health coverage and all of that. That's just as important and should be a priority when you're voting on a contract, is protecting everybody's job.
So the real one that we need to be looking at is automation, and bringing it to the future. Think about that as a union steward as well. You're representing people when there's nobody there, and there's an automation being done. Maybe they can contract it in to have someone work on that system to keep it going. I'm not sure how it works, but I'm sure it's going to break at some point. But there won't be an individual there, a taxpayer worker, a hard work labor person. So what does that look like for you? I mean, like you said, we need to come together and work on what really matters. And automation is the real enemy here, isn't it?
Yeah, automation, AI. I don't know who these companies think they're going to sell their products and their services to when none of us have a job. But I don't think they're focusing on that now. I think they're looking, again, everything's driven by money. And, I think at some point these corporations have to realize that, good jobs like ours, the places where there's hubs, where there's UPS hubs, I'd love to see a study of how those communities fare, with workers who work at a UPS hub and the monies that they collectively bargain and how that affects local communities, local restaurants, local grocery stores, things like that, because our system of capitalism doesn't work unless there's money moving through the system, which means you and I and the people that we work with have to make money, right? We got to be able to go to the grocery store and buy groceries, or take the spouse out or take the family out for a nice dinner, or go on vacation, and pay for services, tourist services, or pay for that hotel. And if nobody has money for those things don't exist. They go away, and so this
kind of silly.
Right. And so I don't know, when you start, we're not going to have any truck drivers on the road, and we're not going to, I think we talked about that the last time, like, the American Trucking Association, which of course is not, I know everybody goes to, they have all the news articles and things like that, but they don't support labor. They support truck owners and trucking businesses, right? And so a lot of their gripes are, what are we going to do with this truck driver shortage? But nobody really has an honest conversation about why there's a trucker shortage. The trucker shortage is created by the depression of wages within the industry. You want people to go do a job that you're not willing to pay them what it's worth, right? And when you have that imbalance where hey, I can go do this job where I have to, I have to go out and maybe I have to stay out on the road 1 or 2 weeks and I'm making not enough money to do the things that I want. Why would I go take that job? Especially when especially progressive states out there have been raising minimum wage. Why would I go out in a truck and make $400 a week when I can go to the McDonald's down the street, be home every night, and I can make 22, 24 bucks an hour? It doesn't make any sense. And so the trucking industry's response to that, again, is not to recognize, hey, we need to pay more because this is worth more, because they don't want to pay you more. They want to pay for something that creates bigger, higher dividends for the executives and the shareholders within those companies. And so that's where they put their money. They could invest money into training. They could invest money into higher wages and better benefits and invest in people, right?
Yeah.
But that's not money they get to put in their pocket if they do that. So it's really about, to me, I really think at some point America has to be, this whole America first and all of this stuff, and people want to have these conversations and, hey, we want jobs to come back and we want this and we want this. None of that really matters unless those jobs are union jobs and they have benefits and they have pension and they have good wages. You bring a manufacturing job back to your community and it pays 12 or 13 bucks an hour. What's it really doing except making money for the people that own that warehouse? It's not doing anything for the actual person who's producing that good. We need to have respect for working class people in this country again. And the most successful times, and what people don't want to talk about, is the most successful times when we built the middle class, it was all tied to unionism. It was about worker rights. And both parties back then cared about working class people. They supported unions. They supported your right to collectively bargain. And unfortunately, there's more and more and more attacks on our way of life, because it's driven by, corporate greed, basically. And until we address that, you're going to see corporations spend more and more money onto automation and AI and all of these things that they can do, without paying you or I to do it. So we got to be aware of it.
Yeah, the amount of money that is being put into just 2 automated vehicles that are on the road with Aurora. I know there's supposed to be talk of more, but there's just 2 right now that are actively running, but they actually had to put someone back in the truck. So, right. Yeah, they're spending a lot of money, billions of dollars, and they could be putting that elsewhere, like you said, for tax-paying individuals,
sure,
hardworking individuals. And like you said, if you want to dilute the workforce, you create a weaker society, because you have younger ones that are looking to educate themselves on something to do in life for a future, but yet they don't feel like it's attainable because they feel like it's going to be replaced by some form of AI or automation. So what's the point of even trying? And so then you're going to create more people that are disconnected for wanting to actually achieve more. And so I like.
Right. Well, and the saturation of good paying union jobs out there, even if you go into the trucking industry now UPS has been hiring more people directly off the street. But there's a lot of us that when we started, you had to work for that crappy company that you got paid $300 a week and you weren't home all week. You were home for a 34-hour reset. And yeah, that was kind of your, paying your way to get your experience. But God, you were in such a bad spot 4 years in because you made no money. I mean, that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing for anybody to do and not have opportunities out there. I remember stories of old timers, before deregulation, when you had interstate carriers and interstate carriers and there were cartage companies coming into every union yard every night picking up in-state deliveries because the corporations couldn't deliver them. There was a whole industry that was that sustained people where they could work as a casual. Maybe they weren't posted on a union board, but they could work for CF and Preston and ABF and Caroline and everybody at the same time, one day at a time when they needed them, and they could earn pension credits, and they could make a good wage and really not have a full-time job somewhere, and they got to learn and they got to know people within the industry, which made them good drivers later on. You just don't have those opportunities anymore. It's very difficult to go out and get a good training with steady work and get paid well for it. There's just not a lot of companies out there that do it, and that's unfortunate. And you also have the gap where, you can't go out on the road and leave the state until you're 21 in a commercial vehicle. So these kids come out of high school, 18, 17, 18 years old. They got to find a company that's within their state, if they want to drive and get that experience. So you're allowing them to go other places and invest time getting a start somewhere else. For those kids that aren't going to go to school, they're investing 2 or 3 or 4 years somewhere else before they're even eligible to do our job, So I think and there's been some talk of that nationally about, do we lower the age? Do we let 18-year-olds go out with, on teams with other people? And I don't know if I'm in favor of that either, but it is an issue. It is an issue for sure.
Yeah. And there's some go-getters out there. I've been to some truck shows, and a lot of responsible acting 18-year-olds they're driving show trucks. I mean, there is a percentage of young ones out there that knows the importance of being safe on the road. And
sure.
So that's great. I mean, we're going to want to pass on a legacy, and also want to debunk a lot of the fear monger that's being put out there. Sometimes just the narrative, just putting out the story that trucking's in jeopardy and it's not going to be here, can cause some issues as well. And I talked to many different people out there, and they say, that's crazy. Just that trucking will disappear. And then there's some people that buy into it and they believe that it's going to happen. So it is a topic to talk about, especially when it comes down to what the future looks like for young ones, and also what the future looks like for the middle class and the hardworking individuals that are out there. So I appreciate you speaking on that. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
And the union culture, the legacy and leadership, you've seen a lot with the culture of union work, and it involves overtime. What keeps you passionate about it, even though there's a lot of politics, stress, and company pressure? What keeps you going?
Well, I mean, I think, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. I think I have an internal tick about, there's something about companies that already make so much more off of labor than the worker does, and trying to take advantage of that person or not treat them fairly, really rubs me the wrong way, and I just, I've tried to take breaks over the years within, felt like I was burnt out, or, hey, I'll take a little break. I won't be a steward for a while, or I won't run. And you just, things happen, and you want to be involved, and you want to be able to have an impact, because you believe in justice, and you believe people should have a fair shake. And so I don't know that I can put my finger on it as far as, why I continue to stay involved. I just, I feel like it's the right thing to do. The Teamsters in general, anybody in any position within the unions will tell you that, so sometimes as Teamsters, we're our own worst enemy. We're, the organization itself is, is political, and, it's unfortunate, and it happens at a national level. Sometimes it happens at a local level, where criticizing, even if it's constructive, people don't take kindly to. And I think that's unfortunate, because I think anybody who if you really expect to improve what you're doing, and you want to improve on the things maybe you're not doing well, you have to have an openness to acknowledge that those things are wrong, right? And so simply writing someone off as, well, how long you've been here because you got a gripe, or, we've all heard it. There are, people that are dismissed all the time because of things they're upset about. And I think we can, at every level within the union, whether you're a rank and file member or a steward, or, somebody at a local level, try not to take offense when someone's upset about something. Regardless of how long that member's been there, they're paying dues. They're supporting their brothers and sisters by paying those dues. They have the right to have their feelings heard within their local. And maybe it's something you can't do anything about. But listening, being empathetic, understanding that just because someone has a critique or thinks they can do something better, doesn't mean they're coming after your job. It doesn't mean they're attacking you personally. It means they care, and those are the type of people, we want people who care about our union to be involved in our union. And as frustrating as it might be for people to hear it that are in leadership positions, I think leadership is a lot about listening. And I think leadership starts there. And the really good leaders out there, have an ear, are empathetic, listen to their members, and then try to be progressive in the way that they evolve themselves and within the organization to to address member issues. And I mean all the members, not just not just the top guys, not just the bottom guys, not just the individual groups, but everybody as a whole. And I think you've seen some of that. I mean, even in the last contract, there was some wording changes within the contract that were more inclusive to a lot of our members, and that's progress. But I think in order for us to effectively move forward as Teamsters, at some point we have to stop worrying about oh, hey, that Ray's a really talented, thoughtful guy. He might take my job, so I can't. I gotta play politics with him because I can't look bad because he questioned something. Instead of having a conversation and saying, hey, Ray, you had this opinion. We want to do something about that. What do we do? And coming together as a group instead of dividing our own union, whether that's locally or local versus other local, or locals versus the international, or whatever the situation might be. I think we can do a lot better job of being inclusive, not just dismissing people because they're not the people in charge. And I think if we do that, we can improve our local or our Teamster union overall, coast to coast.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Great tip. What's one question you get a lot? I mean, I know the steward life is hard. I know you hear a lot of things. What's one question that maybe you can address? Maybe help someone that listens to this episode. Maybe you can address and help others.
A question I get a lot. I would say probably it's a lot of calls as a steward are repetitive. Many times they're questions on, how to what procedure is for the company. So, that question for me might be different than a steward in Minneapolis or somewhere else based on the type of work. A lot of questions I get are on guarantees how do I get my 40-hour guarantee? Do I have a mileage guarantee on sleeper? They're all based on guarantees. So, I would just say that it's I know the contracts, whether it's the national or if it's your local supplemental or whatever, they're not the easiest thing to read. But I would encourage every member, whether you're a steward or not. Guys joke that they think I'm joking, but seriously, like get your contract book and put it in your bathroom. When you're in the bathroom, read an article, read 2 articles, and have a basic understanding of what your contract is. And I think that you'll find that you have a better understanding of what's going on at work when the company tries to do things. A lot of people get upset because they don't know what the rules are. Saves you a lot of angst within the workplace, to just try to educate yourself as much as possible. You're not going to know everything, but you have a basic understanding, and it gives you a better understanding, I think, of what the union itself is trying to do for its members. It gives you a bigger picture of what's been done at the table, both at an international and a local level. Gives you an appreciation for where you're at and some of the rights that you have, that maybe you don't realize you have until you read your contract. So, but yeah, I would say overall it's maybe not one question, but it's some type of contractual conversation. Hey, what's the rule here? What's the rule there? And explanation on something contractual. Nice. So what most of my time's spent on.
And you share that with your family. I mean, that's a great sacrifice that you do, and we really appreciate it. I know you've talked to you for some time, and I know you put the time in, not just at UPS, but other companies as well. And I wanted to give a thank you to your family as well. You guys, it's a team effort. It's not just you doing that. And also coming on this podcast to share more for the listeners out there as well, so that they can gain some understanding or just have something to listen to when they're out there on the road and they can play it over again. So, yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, there's an appreciation. I certainly have an appreciation for what the union's done for me. And I really think, I said it on your last podcast, and it's something I do believe in is, we don't call ourselves a Teamster organization. We call it the brotherhood of Teamsters. A brotherhood indicates family. And, that's, when I think about what I would do for my biological siblings, right? It's you think about the contracts, you think about things in that nature of, hey, raise my brother. He's my union brother, and he's in trouble or he needs help. You don't tell your brother no. You do what you can to help people. And so it's just a way of viewing yourself within this organization and understanding the benefits that you've been allowed by people that came before us, and the people here now that try to stand up for those, those beliefs and those principles, and just trying to be a part of it to ensure that it's there for the people that come behind us. And not thinking about things as, how does this benefit me? How does it benefit us? How does it benefit us as a group? And, I know it's a difficult thing for a lot of people to grasp, because the rest of the world is all about me, me, me. It's all individual. And a lot of times we don't think about ourselves communally, but in order to really understand the union, you have to think about yourself as a group of people, as a person with responsibilities to other people. Because for the union to be successful, I have to care about what happens with Ray. I have to care about what happens with with everybody at my barn, regardless of what their situation is, and whether or not I'm even friends with them. Right? Maybe we don't get along, but their job's important. Their ability to to take care of their families is important, because we're in it together. So, I always encourage people to think about the union in that way.
Yeah, that's nice. I think that's a better way to look at it. I'm not sure how bad can it get when you do help your brother out. I guess some people, they get the fear going in their head and they think they're going to lose their job or something, or I'm not sure what happens, but there's a lot of fear that goes on. If I file a grievance, oh no, I'm gonna have a target on my back. Oh no. Yeah.
Right. Well, there's always that. And, you're always going to have that, whether you have, well, there's any proof of that or not, but, um, my grandpa used to always tell me, what's right. The hard thing's doing it. So, you can make any excuse you want not to do, what is right, but they're just excuses. And, at the end of the day, you just try to do what's right, and approach it from an honest, perspective, and do the best you can. And, if you're coming in and you're doing your job, in most cases, I'm not going to say that there's not a company out there that's not going to retaliate, because we hear about stuff like that, but that's not rampant. It's not rampant. Most people, come in, do their job. A lot of people don't have issues. So, by and large, you're not going to get attacked, by the company. And look, if they retaliate, that's a violation, of labor law, and you address that with your local. There's ways to grieve that. There's ways to bring that to the forefront.
Yeah, maybe that's something that people need to see more often, is that we need to put that to the test, and then that will go away. Maybe we'll
Sure.
say, now it's okay to stand up, and we're not going to be, it's a law by the law of labor. So people fight for those laws as well. So,
Right.
and knowing your rights are important. And I think when people know that, it helps them act differently and more calmly, and knowing that they have particular things that they can ask for that aren't greedy. It's just the things that we fought for that you have rights to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I look at those autonomous trucks, and that if there's nobody in there, that person ain't gonna be fighting for you at the stop sign or at the stop.
Right.
That's, to me, is the ultimate form of greed, for a company to have a vehicle that can run down the road. I can't imagine if a tractor would be hauling fuel with nobody in there. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that truck drivers do that we just don't want to not leave it unmanned. So,
Well, and that's the things we should, we can use the public to, when I talk to people about that, I go, you want to be driving down the road on your way to a vacation with a truck, 80,000 pounds, rolling down the interstate with nobody in it, or some guy 1,000 miles away sitting in a cubicle controlling 3 or 5 or 7 trucks. I mean, the for a lot of this automation stuff for the trucks, they're going to have to earn the trust of the public, and it's things that we should be talking about in public, is how these things aren't safe. They're not going to be safe. And, a lot of the things on our trucks, your front mitigation system and your, the lane departure and all of these things, we drive trucks with them on them now, and they're awful. It's awful.
that's right.
It's terrible. How's a truck going to go drive through? I mean, don't even talk about Wyoming, but I mean, there's even in Arizona, there's ice and everything. They're just going to shut down on the interstate. I mean, what's going to happen? We don't have any of these. You always see these things, and they're on nice, flat ground, beautiful days, freshly painted, interstate. And it's like, that's not the reality of trucking most of the time, you know? So, you know, I think that's something we definitely should use, you know, with when we're talking to the public is, you know, what would you think if you look up and there's nobody in that truck driving, you know?
When your dad's driving out there and, you know, that's
Right.
something were to happen to him. So
Right.
that's cool. So yeah, I mean, with everything going on, automation, corporate changes, labor policy shifts, how do you keep the next generation interested in doing this work? What would you say?
Well, you know, again, we're in a unique position because we collectively bargain, right? So at UPS or other union entities, right, we're making a good living. We have health and health coverage. We have pension payments, right? We have all of these things. We're holding a standard that's desirable. Where sure, some of our jobs are really tough and some of us don't go home every night and work on all week, you know, the sleeper teams out there, but you're compensated in a way where it offsets your time, right? um, and so I think you have to keep jobs. Financially, there has to be a benefit where someone sees, hey, if I go do this, I can buy a house, I can buy a car, I can support my family, you know, I can get great insurance, um, you know, all of these things. I think we have to maintain those things. But again, I go back to the communal part where, you know, an old timer once told me that when he's looking at a contract, he says you look at you negotiate a contract based on the unborn. And what that means is
One
the
more time.
people who aren't here yet, right? He said you have to negotiate a contract based on the unborn. And what that means is the people who aren't here yet, right? You have to guarantee that this job is going to be as good or better for the people who aren't here yet, because that's how you maintain your benefits in your retirement. That's how you ensure that there's always going to be good jobs here, because you negotiate on the behalf of the whole rather than you making a couple extra bucks, you know. And you see this in contracts all the time where they go, hey, Ray, I'll give you $5 an hour, right? But everybody hired after this ratification date, they got to pay half their insurance, right? But we're going to pay you, and they basically sell out the young is what it is, where they incentivize you to vote. They buy your vote in money while they take a benefit away from someone, and they say, well, it's not going to affect you because it only affects people who were hired after this particular date. And a lot of people go, well, the hell does it matter to me, right?
Yeah.
Problem is the next contract, they want to take your insurance from everybody, right? Where they want to make you pay. And you let those people, you know, you let them, you know, it might be $15 you're paying for insurance this time. Next time it's going to be 20% or it's going to be 30%. And if you don't think that's right, ask any union person out there, you know, that's paying for insurance. That's how it started. You know, most of them generally, you know, if they're old legacy contracts, they generally had free insurance at one point, and then the company got their foot in, and they whittle away and whittle away and whittle away, and they take advantage of people thinking about things individually, and they buy stuff in the contract. They buy a vote. So our members have to be aware of that, you know, and we have to fight against that, and we have to ensure that the benefits that we enjoy now, that we make sure we protect those for the people coming after us. Even those young kids that might be working for, you know, we've got feeder guys at CACH that are in their 20s out there running sleeper, you know, 20, early 30s, just starting families, you know, things like that. But the young single guys, they're not thinking about pension. We have to have those conversations with them. Like, hey, we know this isn't important to you now, but it's really important, and you're going to care about this. And that's part of us. That's part of every union member ability to be able to, talk to the younger generation and support them and understand that we're all in it together. And them benefiting from a really good contract is going to benefit all of us when we're retired too, because it's going to maintain our pensions. It's going to ensure our stability in our retirement.
So, congratulations to you for getting the votes that you needed to continue to do what you can to help your members. I think you're the right guy for it, and as well as those that got elected as well. So, what's one thing that we possibly didn't cover on the first episode that maybe you want to cover today, and or just something you want to let the people know? Kind of open-ended there.
Yeah, just what I would say is don't get discouraged. Don't I think you can get frustrated. I think you can get discouraged, and there's, especially on the company side, that a lot of times they nitpick and blame other people, and a lot of that's to break us down as a unit. Sometimes things take a lot longer than they should, and you can get frustrated and even hopeless in the prospects. But what we've got now is a product of people sticking with it and demanding those things and those benefits. And we just have to we have to stick together. We have to support one another. And as frustrating as it might be, whether that's with one of your stewards or other rank and file members or a business agent or your local, somebody on your local board, just stick with it. Just stay positive and don't let the grind you out. Just stay with it. Be positive.
Be positive. I think that's a good positive message. Thank you so much, Chuck. You always appreciate the way you break things down in a very, calm and relaxed way of talking with individuals about the heavy stuff. It never fails that, it's the real talk that we need. When we reach out to someone like yourself, I think that's going to be great for the future. I think that's going to be good for everyone. So if you guys are listening to this, share this with another fellow Teamster, help them to stay encouraged, stay positive. And so I appreciate that, man. So, and anyone who's struggling with management right now, or feeling like they're not being heard, so a little bit of advice is to stay grounded, keep pushing, and seek the right help from the individuals that will be able to represent you. So thanks so much, Chuck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm glad to have you on the show. That's it for today's episode of That's Delivered. A big thanks again to Chuck Bryan for coming back on and giving us the real talk that we need. Not just about what we do on a local level, but also what we can do nationally to fight against a lot of the negativity that's out there, that we're doing okay. It's not just about the job, but it's the responsibility that wins. It's the pressure that we have with the purpose to get things accomplished for the future, and even right now too. So take a look at, if you like this episode and like what you see or like what you hear, whether you're a union steward or a dock worker or a driver or just someone out there trying to make a difference, share this with your crew. Let's keep on building up each other and staying positive out there for the things to come. So, any topics that we could discuss next time? Maybe we'll get Chuck Bryan back on again for a third time. So, go ahead. And
anytime you need me, Ray. I appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate it. And we can talk about those topics. So let us know. Until then, stay strong, stay sharp, and always keep it delivered.
Are you a trucker looking for a safe and reliable place to park? Look no further than Truck Parking Club. With locations across the country, we've got the perfect spot waiting for you, whether it's daily or long-term parking. And right now, use promo code DELIVERED at checkout for an exclusive discount. Reserve your spot today at truckparkingclub.com and drive stress-free, knowing your parking is covered.